These people survived horrific accidents while working. In June of 2023, heroes raced to save a man who'd just fallen off the Ambassador Bridge that connects Detroit, Michigan to Canada.
I see him! I see him!
Spencer Baker fell 150 feet into the Detroit River. A family nearby saw it all happen and went looking for help.
You see somebody? Yeah, he right there! Somebody just got He was working on the bridge!
We heard really loud banging on our side door and people yelling that somebody had fallen from the bridge. They were pointing to help us. They're like, there he is, there he is.
I see him! Get him, get him, get him! Right there! They got him, they got him!
He really wasn't swimming. He was just bobbing in the river and he had no life jacket on. Once we got him out, we put a blanket on him and just reassured him. He just kept asking why was he wet and what happened to him over and over again. I said, you fell off a bridge.
Yeah, he's breathing.
I remember falling and I was just thinking that this is it, man. My life's over. I'm never going to get to see my daughter again.
The people that really deserve the credit were those folks in the park that saw him fall and did something.
Somebody just got him!
In 2022, this alarming video showed a UPS guy in distress. He struggled to make it to the front porch, then collapsed, overwhelmed by the 110-degree temps in Arizona. He rested for a moment to recover. Slowly, he got back up again and reached for the doorbell before stumbling back to his truck.
It's just a sickening feeling that you don't know what's going to happen to that guy if he goes to the next house or to his truck. You can see in the video, he's looking at his hands, shaking his hands. I mean, he could have a mini stroke or anything.
Surprisingly, UPS trucks have no air conditioning.
To get air through the truck, the best way is we always leave the doors open.
After the incident, UPS said the driver was fine. They also said, quote, "Our package delivery vehicles make frequent stops, making air conditioning ineffective." In 2022, an SUV rolled over a firefighter. It happened in busy Midtown Manhattan after a black BMW SUV crashed into a white sedan. The firefighter was trying to stabilize the BMW when the driver, trapped inside, accidentally hit the gas. The vehicle crashed down and crushed the firefighter's leg.
Oh my God!
Fellow firefighters and some good Samaritans rushed in to save Ryan Warnock, who was pinned underneath.
You just have a job to do and you do it, and we train for this, and that's why we're here.
He suffered a broken femur in the accident. In 2023, a carnival worker hung 30 feet in the air to protect a little girl. It happened at a festival in Texas. Eyewitnesses say the ride operator was helping a 12-year-old girl get into the cabin when a strong gust of wind sent it skyward. The man's legs dangled as he tried to protect the child from falling out of the ride's open door.
Look, everybody got phones out just waiting. It's horrible. Is that a kid or a worker?
The worker held on for both his life and the little girl's as children in the bottom car were evacuated. It reportedly took around 3 minutes before the other fair workers got control of the stuck machinery and were able to bring them down. The ride's owner says no injuries were reported, and the bullet ride was shut down for the rest of the day. In 2023, after a tragic workplace accident, a man was given the gift of a new face. Aaron James accidentally touched a 72,000-volt power line. The electrical jolt caused him to lose his left arm, left eye, nose, and front teeth. Doctors determined the Arkansas native was a candidate for a donor face transplant, as well as a first-of-its-kind treatment, an eye transplant.
Mama!
Mom and Mobley, so nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So thankful for you and what you're going to do for him.
Of course.
Dr. Eddie Rodriguez from New York University Langone Health traveled to Arkansas before performing the operation.
And some of you may be wondering why a physician comes to someone's home like this. It's not something that we commonly perform. But in Aaron's case, an important part of his healing process, which he's about to take on, is for us to get a really good understanding of what the home environment's like, what the family support is like.
The medical team rehearsed the brand new procedure before Aaron was on the table, and in May of 2023, a donor was identified. 140 surgeons, nurses, and healthcare professionals worked for 21 hours in the operating room to give Aaron a new face and eye.
All our rehearsals paid off. Everything went exactly as we had planned.
Just 5 months after the surgery, life changed for Aaron.
And that's not giving you any problem at all? You're breathing okay at night and sleeping, no issues?
I even said something right after that. I said, look, you know, if you want to leave, you know, I get it. She said, no. She said, we're in this to the end.
Aaron says he's glad this medical history started with him.
If me doing it first kickstarts it, you know, I'm all for it.
They kind of just looked at me like, okay, this guy's done. I mean, there's nothing to his head. You can read people's faces coming to visit you and see the horror on their face.
Mike Wollo from Massachusetts is lucky to be alive after a horrific accident.
So my friend David calls me. He owns a granite importing shop. Each bundle weighs about 10,000 pounds. Asked me, hey, can I help out unloading a shipment of granite? Next thing you know it, I just hear David screaming at the top of his lungs, and I don't understand why he's screaming. So I start running, and at that point I look up and I see a wall of stone falling on me. At that point it was way too late, and it came down and hit my left temple and crushed my face and head against the other bundle of stone on the other side of the container. They said they could see inside my skull. Everybody's just screaming and crying and assume I'm dead. The crushed stone has me pinned. All three of them taking turns holding my head back together because everything's just wide open.
First responders finally arrived.
They kind of just looked at me like, okay, this guy's done. I mean, there's nothing to his head. They throw me on a gurney, get me into the back of an ambulance, and they opened up 2 units of blood, and they said it was just going into me and right out. So they knew my organs at that point were starting to shut down.
Mike woke up from a coma that night.
That's when I felt the pain. My whole body was swelled up. My hands, my feet, everything. My head was the size of a beach ball. Broken my neck, fractured my C1, my C2, and my shoulders. My face was crushed and ripped off down to 2 7/8 of an inch wide. My jaw had ripped off and broken into 3. My palate ripped off the skull, broke that in 2. Both cheekbones were destroyed. My left eye blew out and was down below where my chin would have been located. You can read people's faces coming to visit you and see the horror on their face. My eyes were so swollen because they were so swelled up because they had to push the eye back in. Both eyes, I think.
Doctors advised loved ones to say goodbye.
My oldest brother, John, had asked, well, what's the chance of him living? And they gave me a 2%. Like, we give him 2%, and maybe at this time you guys should go into his room and say what you need to say, and perhaps time to say goodbye.
Mike fought to stay alive.
The swelling went down in less than a week. They did put me in a induced coma for a couple of days because, well, I kept on trying to leave the bed. I just wanted out.
Mike's family prevented him from seeing his face.
No mirrors. Don't let him see himself. But when I was getting visitors, you can see their facial reactions like, holy, what am I looking at? They sent in a nurse one morning to give me a shave. I walked into the bathroom and looked into the mirror, and that was the worst moment of my life. That I looked like Sloth from the movie Goonies back in the early to mid 80s. And my head was gigantic. The top of my head was kind of pointed and misshapen. My left side was a lot larger than my right side. My left eye was moving around on its own, not looking anywhere I was trying to look. My right eye, all the blood vessels blew out of it, so it looked like a demon's eye. And my cheeks and my lips were all deformed, and all I just remember is the horror of like, okay, well, life's over. And that was the hardest moment of my life. I went to go sit back in bed, but I decided to sit in a chair and just look out the window and staring out at Boston. You know, Boston nighttime, it's very pretty. And I just stared out the window and I started to cry.
That was the motivation Mike needed. He ended up making a full recovery.
My accident happened end of October, and I was snowmobiling by the first week of January. Talk about an unbelievable feeling of being free again, feeling you just belong.
Mike is grateful for the life he has and wants to motivate others dealing with trauma.
All these people thanking me for sharing the story because, you know, my story should be a story of trauma and tragedy with a very nice storybook ending, so to speak, and that there is life after a trauma.
I just fell into a septic tank.
In January of 2023, this Amazon driver was trapped in nasty raw sewage.
I walked by it and the ground came out underneath me. I am standing in knee-deep sludge.
He was delivering a package when the ground swallowed him up.
I'm like 6 feet down, and I tried using these roots around me to get out, and it just pulled more dirt on top of me.
He was surprisingly calm, even though he realizes how dangerous the situation is.
I really do not want to die in somebody's whatever you call these things.
The ground can really start eroding. The more you move, the more you have more ground come in on you. They put a ladder over the hole so that it kind of stabilized the ground, and then they put one down to him, and he actually self-extricated. He got himself out.
Once he was out, he drove home, took a shower, and went back to work. For Inside Edition Digital, I'm Andrea Swindall.